Hey now, the internets. Today we're going to take a look at Demonslayer, the Siege of Mount Kunlun. Now, if you haven't heard of this game, up until just about a month ago, I would have been in the same camp as you. I had no idea this game even existed. I guess it came out at Essen this past year. I should mention, it is from publisher Aosama and the Chamber of Ethereal Culture Beijing, which I'm not entirely sure about Chinese culture or the government over there, but I think that means it was funded partially by the government. Please, someone correct me on that. But I had never heard of this game. I think it was released at Essen last year. Very little fanfare, apparently. And I picked it up from Board Game Bliss, which specializes in getting games from around the world that I've never heard of, which makes them great for that reason. And the thing about this game, I was turned on to it because it's a deck building game. I love deck building games. That's no secret to anyone that watches my channel. And it seems to have a really cool theme that I don't see in a lot of games. It's Chinese mythology, which is always crazy. It's always crazy and interesting whenever I see it in any kind of pop culture media or anime or things like that. You're taking control of these factions of like immortal warriors. They call them the Peaks of Kunlun, or something, peaks of something, and you're fighting against these demons called the Heart Eaters, who are led by these overlords, and you're trying to wipe out all the Heart Eaters and their overlords, and whoever does this the best, I guess, which means victory points called cultivation points in this game, is going to be the winner. But of course, in order to get to that point, via deck building, you're going to have to make your deck stronger. Every player has their own team of immortals that they can summon into their deck, and then also general cards that they can purchase to make their deck stronger as well using clarity. Then you use a second kind of currency, combat power, to fight off the Heart Eaters. Get points, you can get artifacts. Lots of stuff going on in this game. Some really unique things that are different from a lot of other deck builders while still having some similar things. So I have a lot of thoughts about this. Before I say too much, let's go ahead and go to a quick overview of the game. Then we're going to come back, and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a very quick overview of Demonslayer, the Siege of Mount Kunlun. This is a competitive game for 1 to 4 players, although technically, if you're playing a 1-player game, it's really not a 1-player game. There's no real mechanics for that. You're just playing the exact same game and trying to go through the different Heart Eater swarms, so just bear that in mind. This game takes place in Chinese mythology. You take the control of these 4 different factions. They're called peaks in the game, who are trying to destroy the evil Heart Slayers, like these evil demons who are led by 7 different overlords. The goal of the game is to wipe out all these different Heart Eaters, wipe out 7 waves of them. So every overlord comes out with a new wave of 8 Heart Eaters. So wipe out every wave of 9 monsters, essentially, all 7 of them. The game will end, and whoever has the most cultivation points is going to be the winner of the game. Cultivation points being actual point tokens you'll acquire during the course of the game, but also you may be able to change those in for artifacts, which are also going to be worth cultivation points as well. Now, this is a deck building game, which means that standard deck building rules apply. You're going to start off with an inferior deck of cards that you're going to try to build up with more powerful cards with the hope of purchasing them, putting them into your discard pile, eventually reshuffling them, then using those cards in order to both buy cards and to combat the Heart Eater. So in this game, this deck building game, there's 2 different forms of currency. There's clarity, which is always depicted with like a blue circle. So that would be an example of clarity. And then there is combat power, which let me show you. It's kind of harder to see. But there at the bottom of the card, you see there's a little red symbol. The text is very small on some of these cards. But there you go. Anytime you see a red symbol, that is going to be a symbol of combat power. So you'll have your inferior hand of cards, and every player is going to start with, they actually have a much smaller deck than most deck building games. You only have 7 cards that you'll start off with. You'll start off with the Chan of Diligence, which I'm not sure if that's a typo, if that's supposed to be Chan or not, but it's only going to give you 1 clarity when you play it, and you can purchase more of them from the marketplace. They are called the Infinite Isles. And then you'll start off with 2 cards that are your disciples from your immortal roster. So every player is going to have a player board, that has your immortal roster, whatever your faction cards are. These are the characters that are always going to be available for you to purchase because they belong to your faction. And you'll start off with 2 of the weakest, which are the disciples. Then you have the masters and then the sage, which is the most expensive one to buy. and actually requires that you spend cultivation points as well. So the cost will be in the top corner of the card, and then it will tell you what it can do. You'll have the name, you'll have different denotations, like this is an immortal, which will matter for some card abilities. Then it will tell you what you get when you play it. So this one says attack, you get 1 combat power. There's a lot of symbology in this game. So for instance, this card says that you can instead discard this card to have attack 3. That's what that symbol means, is discard. Now discard in this game, this is very important, is very, very different from other deck building games. In this game, discarding means putting back into the marketplace on their stack. So if you use her special ability to get 3 combat power, you put her back out of play, out of your deck, back on the stack for her to purchase later. Same thing with any other card that tells you to discard it. That's a significantly different thing than discarding in other deck building games. And this one, cards will tell you what would be the equivalent of discarding in other games is putting it into your waiting pile. So that's pretty important. Just looking at this Fire Factions cards here, just to give you some other examples of what they do. The Master of the Wind costs you 5 clarity to purchase. She gets attack power of 2. Her special ability, though, works very well in tandem with the other cards. When you would be forced to discard a card, you can instead put it into the waiting deck, which means your discard pile, or what would be the equivalent of your discard pile in other games. So you can save those disciples. And it works really well with your Sage. Now, as you can tell, your Sage costs a lot of points to get, but you also have to spend a lot of clarity, but you also have to permanently remove cultivation points, and he will not be worth anything at the end of the game as far as points. You can discard any number of meditation cards, which are essentially those clarity cards that I showed you before. And if you do, you get X plus 2 combat power, where X is equal to the total number of clarity on the discarded card. So he's extremely powerful bomb, but you do have to discard him in order to use his ability, because he does have that symbol on the card. So you have to discard him as well as the meditation cards. But if you can save him with your master that prevents discarding, that's great. So I'm not going to show you every one of the factions' Imperial rosters, but that's just a general idea of how they're all going to work. Every faction's a little bit different in how their abilities work. Some of them focus on different aspects of the game. Now, like I said, you have an Imperial Isles over here, and how the turn sequence is going to work is that the Infinite Isles. The first thing you can do is, at the start of your turn, is you can take your actions as normal, or you can choose to just get rid of a card from your hand. If you just want to get rid of a crap card that you don't want anymore, you can do that. You can also choose to get rid of a miasma card. Miasma cards are like curse cards that you may be forced to take into your deck, and I'll get back to those in a second. Then you can go to the normal part of your turn, and during your turn, you can do a few things. One is that you can just purchase cards. So, well, essentially you play cards in order to have currency to either buy or fight. So you can use the clarity to buy cards from the Infinite Isles, and just to show you, you can always buy the meditation cards, which just give you more clarity, or you can buy other cards with special abilities. And of course, they're finite. When they're gone, unless someone returns them back to the stack. So the text is really tiny in these. I got to get in really close just to show you. So here we have the Sword Maiden, who has an attack of 2, and this is a turn ability. Now, I don't understand the reasoning for this, but when you play a card, you can also turn it, tap it essentially. I know that's copyrighted, but to show that you've used it. So this one says, turn this card for every Heart Eater you slay this turn, reduce the cost of acquisition this turn by 1. Acquisition is when you buy a card. So you get 1 buy per turn, and you can slay 1 Heart Eater. If you slay Heart Eaters, you can normally only get 1 acquisition and 1 slay. So if you slay Heart Eaters with this card, or during the turn you play this card, you'll also get to buy stuff cheaply. Some of these cards are just big bombs. So here you have the Lightning Bolt, which just costs you, or Golden Thunderbolt, which costs you 7 clarity, but when you play it, it gives you 3 attack power, which I know is, I'm sorry, it's actually 4 attack power. These are really hard to see. I'm going to talk about that in my final thoughts. So those are just some examples. There's a lot of different and powerful cards here. I'll show you one more that has a very different effect. The Clarion Call lets you essentially dig through your deck just to get immortal cards, and discarding every other card you come across. This is a great way to get cards for combat, since most immortals are all about dealing combat damage. And there's other cards that let you draw and discard, things like that. So you can always buy something from the Infinite Isles with your 1 acquisition per turn, or you can choose to fight. You can choose to fight one of the Heart Eaters that's out here. Same kind of thing, same basic setup. Instead of using clarity, you're going to use combat power to meet the cost of the Heart Eaters and defeat them. And they all have special abilities as well. So, for instance, If you choose to fight the Hell Succubus here, after slaying, you discard an immortal from your hand. Remember, discard means permanently losing it and having to repurchase it later. Cultivation points. You're going to get those cultivation points as tokens when you beat her. Remember, those are victory points and also a type of currency, which I'll get back to in a second. Spider Demon. Now, Spider Demon has a shadow mark. That means that you cannot fight this Heart Slayer until you defeat every other Heart Slayer that's out there, unless it's other ones that have the shadow mark as well. Basically, they're hiding. Brawl, let me clarify that too. Well, I'll explain that in a second. But also, the player who slays before slaying an Overlord receives 2 cultivation points, as well as the extra cultivation point down there. And just the last one, I think I'll show you. I'll show you a couple more. This one has a Guardian mark. What the Guardian mark means is that you have to defeat any Heart Slayer with or Heart Eater. I keep calling them Heart Slayer. I'm very sorry about that. Heart Eaters. It lets you slay another Heart Eater. You must slay this Heart Eater first before you can slay any of the other ones. It's protecting the other ones, essentially. This one, now I'll talk about Miasma. This one's going to force you to take a Miasma when you slay it, but you do get 5 cultivation for doing so. Miasma are curse cards that you're going to have to play if they're in your hand. Unless you choose to discard one right away at the start of your turn and give up the rest of your turn, you have to play it and take the negative effect. So this one says, each of your immortals loses 1 combat this turn. This one says, reduce attack power by 3 this turn. This Miasma may not be discarded for any reason, which is really, really nasty. At the beginning phase, you must discard 1 immortal. And remember, discarding is really bad in this game, and there's a lot of different examples of this, so you usually don't want to take those. Now, the other important thing that's out here is the Overlord. It looks very similar to the Heart Eaters, but it's a bit more powerful. This one happens to have a shadow mark as well, which means that you cannot defeat her until every other Heart Eater is dead. Now, how it normally works is that you can choose to fight the Overlord early, unless there are Guardian Heart Eaters still out there. And defeating the Overlord is the only way you're going to get to the next Overlord and the next wave of Heart Eaters. And if you're even able to defeat the Overlord early, you instantly slay every other Heart Eater that's still alive on the table and get all the points for them as well as a lot of points just for killing the Overlord. This one is worth 6. The problem with that is that so long as all of the other Heart Eaters are alive, or any of them are alive, they add their combat value to the Overlord's combat value. So it's extremely difficult to kill one that still has Heart Eaters out on the table, but you can do it and potentially get a lot of points, and it becomes more viable near the end of the game. But when you kill the Overlord, all the other Heart Eaters that are still out there get wiped away, you get the points, new Overlord comes out, new wave, and then you continue on until all the waves are destroyed. A couple of other aspects of the game, well, you have the artifacts. Now, this is a major thing that I think was originally an expansion and is now in this English version of the game. How artifacts work, at the end of your turn, you have 1 chance to gain an artifact. When you choose to do so, only then will you draw the top 3 cards off of the artifact deck and then try to purchase one. Artifacts are very powerful things that you can only have 3 of in play. You have a special segment of your board called the Regalia Zone, and you have to buy them with cultivation points. So you have to actually spend victory points to buy them, but they are worth those amount of victory points at the end of the game, so you're not losing anything for having done it. This one says reduce the attack power of all acolytes by 1 this turn. So acolytes are a specific form of Heart Eater, I should mention. Another example, this one says Rampage. Now, Rampage is a very cool ability that even some Heart Eaters will give you when you kill them. It lets you kill more than 1 Heart Eater per turn. So for every Rampage you're able to kill another Heart Eater if you've got the points for it. And this one says discard a Miasma to receive 2 victory points, which is just a fantastic ability. Now, the interesting thing about this, and why they call it alchemy, other than you just spending points to buy those cards, and the reason why there is a single die that comes with this game, a wooden die, is that you have the option of trying to reduce the cost of your artifact purchase by trying some sort of reckless alchemy. What you do, you make that decision, and then you roll the die to see how much of a discount you get. If you get a 2 through 6, whatever you're trying to purchase is that many less. If you can still afford it, because you could actually try this if you just don't have any cultivation points or enough, and hope that this gets you enough of a discount to buy one, or you can do it even if you already have enough cultivation points and you just want the discount. Because remember, it's more victory points at the end. So if you only have to spend 5 victory points for a 9 victory point artifact, you are essentially gaining 4 more victory points plus the artifact, which is great. The problem is, if you roll a 1 on this 6-sided die, and it is just a normal 6-sided die, you automatically fail and you lose all the victory points that you are essentially wagering for that artifact. If you had to spend any, you just lose as many as the cost of the artifact and you don't get the artifact. So it's kind of crazy risky to do that, but it is a viable strategy for the game. There's a lot of other little things that I could tell you about. I mean, there's a lot of different cards that are out there for purchase, and a lot of different types of Heart Slayers and Overlords, but they all sort of behave in the same way, and turns go the same in the same way too. You can start off trying to discard a card and give up the rest of your turn. You can acquire cards, acquisition. You can acquisition disorder. You can try to slay a Heart Eater and possibly more than one acquisition and more than one Heart Eater, and you can try alchemy in order to get a cool artifact. Excuse me. The game ends when you go through all 7 waves of the Overlord and Heart Eaters. There's exactly enough Heart Eaters for all of that. Whoever has the most cultivation points by adding up your actual point tokens and your artifact values is the winner. Now let's get to my final thoughts. This is a very tough review for me. It's one of those reviews where I wish I could just come right out and say, bah, this game is terrible, or this game is phenomenal, you should get it right now. I can't say either of those things. Demonslayer does some things that I think are awesome, that I really do not see in a lot of other deck builders. And I love deck builders, but I'm always looking for ones that do something in a unique way. And it's one of the things that attracted me to Demonslayer, aside from the cool theme. And having played it, I could definitely say I wasn't wrong. There's some very cool, very, very cool aspects here. Well, there are some things that really, really weigh this game down. So first off, I always talk about components and theme first, or almost always talk about components and theme first. And I think all of that is really solid here. The artwork is gorgeous. Some of the best artwork I've ever seen, without exaggeration. Really, really great. Some of the graphic design needs a lot of work. As you saw during my overview, the text is super small. The numbers on some of the combat and clarity quotients are really, really hard to see. Like, it could have been... I know that this is an English translation of an original Chinese game, and knowing that somehow, a lot of times when I play games that were originally in Japanese, the end result on the English side is that the text gets shrunk down very, very tiny. And I wish that they could work on that, because it's a big problem. One of the people that I played this game with, I played this game 3 different times with 3 different groups of people, or almost different groups of people, and one person in one of the games almost couldn't play the game. He was constantly asking someone else to read the cards because his eyesight wasn't perfect, but even if you had great eyesight, you'd still have a hard time with this. So that's a big issue. There's also some typos, which is just something you can kind of expect sometimes when you have translation from a different language into English, or whatever language it might happen to be. So, but that's kind of okay. The rest of the components, it's a very weird box. I guess I should have showed that on camera, but that's fine. The boards are pretty low quality. There's like big white lines down the centers of mine where they fold, and they're just not great, but it still looks good when you have it all laid out, and the card quality is fine. The tokens, the die, it's okay. There is some things where, like, the miasma cards are a little confusing because some of them have the same name but different art and different abilities, and in the rule book, some things are... The rule book is not very good. It's not laid out great. There's some things that are very, very nebulous, at least in my opinion, and just walls of text that should have bullet points because there's very important rules in there, but looking at it, you just think, oh, that's a bit of story, I guess. Well, no, it's actually story with some very important rules about the actual game that you're playing. So that is a bit of a problem. Moving on to the gameplay. Now, like I said, there's some really, really cool aspects here. I love it when a deck builder lets someone, and this happens very infrequently, but it lets someone have their own personal pool of cards to buy from. In this case, it's a mixture of both things. I talk about High Command a lot. War Machine and Horde's High Command. I guess I'm the only reviewer that actually likes that game. That's fine. I'm fine being the one-man army for that. But that game, you have a whole deck that you... with a randomized Ascension-style lineup that you purchase from, which is great for that, but I admit it's a bit clunky, especially since you have to really play the game, you have to do like a pre-deck construction there. For Demonslayer, everyone's just got a faction of 3 different immortal types that they can purchase from. Then you have the Infinite Isles board with a bunch of different units that you can purchase. And I like that. I like that whole mixture. You can still have a very unique personal deck and personal play style. Like the red faction, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember their names, but the red faction is very good at combat. And I think it might be the yellow or blue, one of the other factions is really good at getting artifacts and manipulating those. Everyone has a different type of combat style, speed to it, and I really like that, and how you can have different units, and every unit has a different power level, and they kind of feed off of each other. I talk about the red faction because I think that 2 of the 3 times that I played, I just happened to get the red faction. I wanted to try different ones, but other people wanted to play the ones, which is fine. But the red faction and all of them feed off of each other. So I showed him the example that one of them had to be discarded. I'll get back to that in a second. One of them had to be discarded. The disciples had to be discarded in order to activate their best ability, but another card saved that from having happened, and also the ultimate sage card also had to be discarded to use its best ability, but the middle faction card let you save both of those, and that was a great, cool combo to do, and it made you feel different from everyone else. So getting back to what I just said, it's so stupid. This is just a translation thing, I'm sure. Discarding in this game is destroying. Every other game that I've played, it's destroy, trash, remove from game, all of these different things. This game decided to be different and say that discarding, which every other game, deck building game, has taken to mean putting into your discard pile that will eventually be reshuffled. This game decided to be different and say that that means destroy, which was really confusing for people at first because we'd all played deck building games before, and this one decided to be different. So that was a bit of an annoyance. There's also some little clunky things as far as the card special abilities. There's iconography, and the iconography is not that bad because there's not too much of it, and a lot of times if they have the space on the card, they'll go ahead and explain what the ability is anyways. But then there's the whole turn thing, which is really confusing because it says, turn this card to activate its ability, but what's the difference between just playing the card and activating the ability? Why do I have to turn the card too? And as it turns out, it's just a reminder that you've used it. Okay. So that is that. There's some weird things going on there. And again, the rulebook is not great. The rulebook is also not great in explaining alchemy and how you're essentially betting your cultivation points. You can attempt alchemy even if you can afford the things that you want just to get a discount. That is probably one of the coolest things about the game. I like that, how you can basically trade in your cultivation points by spending, well, not spending an action, you just get to do it for free in order to get a cool artifact, and you can have the whole betting thing, which I think is way too much of a risk, and my luck is way too bad rolling the die. But hey, if you want to do it, more power to you. I hope it works out for you. But I like that that's an option, that it's a really cool thing, and it feels a little out of place with the rest of the game, but I like it. Same thing with the miasma and the curses. Not as game-breaking as you would think. Very few people were really held back too badly by the curses. They're not too hard to get rid of, especially if you can get those really cool artifacts that let you get rid of them. So, all of this seems great. Why am I down on the game? There's a couple of things. First is that it's got a very weird arc to it. So, you're trying to kill all these heart eaters. That's eventually how you're going to get the most points and how the game is going to end eventually. But you want to get the most points, and that's how you're going to get them, is by defeating all these heart eaters. You want to be defeating them the most. But a couple of things. First off, it's a game of chicken. You want to kill heart eaters, but the more heart eaters you kill, you're making it easier for the other players to potentially kill the overlord. And if someone kills the overlord, they immediately get a huge advantage, especially if they're able to pull off enough combat power to kill the overlord before some of the other heart eaters are dead. That's a huge swing in the game. And we found that once someone was able to get a lot of cultivation points, they get really cool artifacts, and then it's a rich gets richer thing. They have a lot of cool special abilities. Yeah, you can only have 3 artifacts, not counting, I didn't even mention this in the overview, and I'm sorry, but you also, some of the heart eaters can turn into equipment that you can wear. It's not a huge deal. So once people got a lot of those things, they really became unstoppable. They were constantly the one to mow through the overlord. But that's a problem with the game too, is that sometimes you just can't do anything on your turn. There's no point in you buying any more cards from the Infinite Isles because you've already got your deck where you want it to be. So now you just need to kill heart eaters. But if you don't draw the right cards and the right combat power, you essentially just go, okay, I can't do anything with this, I'm done, go. And there's a lot of that in this game. It's just very, very unfulfilling and unsatisfying. I'd like to have the feeling that you can do something. You can spend your whole turn just to mill a card from your deck, to discard it, But sometimes that's not that great a thing to do. Not if every other player is potentially going to be very lucky, draw the hand that they need, kill monsters, and just propel themselves ahead of you. It's very, very weird feeling. On top of which, even if you wanted to buy more cards to put into your deck from the Infinite Isles, there's really not that many cards. There's like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 different types of cards in the Infinite Isles, but they're always the same. The ones that I showed in the overview are all there ever is. I didn't randomize the stacks that were out there. That's it. And there's only maybe 5 copies of each. And once those are run out, they're gone until someone has to discard it or chooses to, and it goes back onto the stack. But that means that your strategy and what you can do for the rest of the game is determined very early on. I'm talking wave 2 is essentially, wave 2, maybe wave 3 out of 7 is when you are set. You have the cards that you're going to use, and that's it. And now you just have to try and get artifacts and try to mow through Heart Eaters as fast as you can before the other players do. Now, that's weird in and of itself. And I say as fast as you can through the Heart Eaters because at a certain point, you and the rest of the players are going to be taking your turns very quickly because you realize that the 60 minutes it says on the box for game length is a complete lie. This game is overly long. The first game of this we played, and yes, obviously, even if we've all played deck builders, the first time you play a game, there's going to be rules questions. It's going to be protracted a little bit. So you might say, okay, box says 60 minutes, 90 minutes. Maybe your first game's 90 minutes. Totally acceptable to me. We were 2.5 hours into the game, and we had only gone through 5 of the 7 waves. 5 of the Overlords and their groups of Heart Eaters. And I had to quit the game. Well, I had to stop the game because the other players at the table had completely checked out. All they were doing was complaining and just it was late and we wanted to end the game. And it would have gone on for at least another 45 minutes because the nature of the game is such that every wave felt like an entire game almost. You just sitting there, going through your deck as quickly as you can, trying to get the power that you can, hoping that you're just lucky before the other players are lucky. And I don't know what these are playing the game with the rules as written. You could play with less Overlords, I guess, but if you play with less Overlords, the game would also feel unsatisfying because, again, you only have so many cards to purchase from the Infinite Isles, and then it's just a race of who gets the best cards, which is almost always the cards that let you draw more cards or get more combat power. And then who gets them first, who draws them first, that's it. So the whole feel of the game is awkward, overlong, moments of tenseness of trying to outrace your opponents, but not for any pure strategy reasons, punctuated by moments of coolness because of these cool faction cards you can put into your deck and combos that you can work out with them. But other than that, it felt like a lot of great ideas executed poorly. I feel as if this was not developed enough. It should have felt fast, strategic, combo-rific. I don't know what the solution for that is. Less Overlords, less waves, more cards from the Infinite Isles, more power cards that just expedite the game faster by letting you mow through things. But as it is, one entire section of the game, the Infinite Isles and Clarity, became completely useless by at least mid-game, possibly earlier. And then it was just a slog of trying to get through the rest of these waves and people begging for the game to end. That's how every one of our games ended. I don't know how I talked the other groups into sitting through the entire thing. We got a little bit faster, but you're still looking at like a 2.5 hour game. So I would really, really hesitate to recommend this game right now. As cool as the theme is, as cool as the artwork is, as cool as some of the individual mechanics are, it is a mess at this point. Am I giving up on it? I don't know. I don't want to. There's so many things that I like about it, and I feel they're promising expansions, and maybe that would fix it. And maybe if they get enough feedback, they'll take it to heart and make it into a more streamlined, solid game. But as it is right now, breaks my heart. I can't recommend it. I would try it for sure before you buy it, if that's possible for you, because it needs more development time. It just does. That is Demonslayer, The Siege of Mount Kunlun. Ugh, it even has a really cool name.
from Aosama.